You gonna do what? Okay, can you just sit your book down? You send a teacher today. Can you send it today? You always got you said it today. You can see it tomorrow. Oh goodness. You know what? I want to sit behind and sit behind and staff and see if we can. That's what we're here. I'm here to learn, and I can't look in front of me. So I'm taking one home. Look at the front.
But maybe this is
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming to our standards-based grading presentation. We're just going to give people just a couple more minutes to join us, and then we'll get started. All right, thank you again for coming this evening. We are so happy to see so many parents here engaging in their learning of their students and understanding where they are going and how to interpret that information. If you're online and you haven't done so yet, please use the QR code to sign in. Yeah. This here. All right, tonight we have quite a few of our coaches here to assist with understanding the standards-based mastery reports, and we'll get to some personalization at the end. And Karen Williams and Lindsay Cahoon are going to give you a nice overview of what standards-based mastery is and how to interpret your child's reports. We also have some parent reps here today, Ms. Silva, wait your hand. Ms. Brown, and Ms. Smith. And they're also here to give their perspective on the standards-based mastery reports and how it works for them as parents. All right, today we're going to do a quick overview of our federal programs. Every year we just need to run through federal programs and let our parents know that we do receive federal funding. And then we will go over an overview of the standards-based mastery and look at the logistics of it. We'll have a Q&A, and then we will have an opportunity for you to work one-on-one with the coaches to understand the report. Okay, so as you may be aware or maybe not aware, we do receive federal funding here at NEAT. We are a Title I school. We receive 3 pots of money for being a Title I school. We receive money to improve the academics of our disadvantaged students, but we use that money across board, across all students. So we're a school-wide program. We also receive Title II funding, which is funding that helps us prepare our beginning teachers so that they are able to be the best product possible to assist your student in learning. And then finally, we receive Title IV funding, which allows us to pay the tuition of our high school students at our local colleges for enrichment. All of our federal funds go to support both our strategic goals, which is to have exceptional school culture, to prepare our students for the real world of work, and to have the long-term sustainability of our school. We have 5 goals this year for our federal funds, and that's to reduce our at-risk population of students, to increase proficiency rates of all students, to increase our parent and family involvement in our school and with our students, and to increase our beginning teachers, and then finally to make sure that all of our students are well-rounded and prepared for the real world. So we encourage our parents to be involved here at NEAT, and I would encourage you to go to our website to read our full parent and family engagement policy. You will be asked a question on the exit survey today about whether that needs to be adjusted or changed. So if you have a moment, go ahead and do that. And then finally, just a brief overview of where our funding is going this year. We have just a little under $1,000 going to parent engagement. We have about $18,000 going to a program enhancement teacher. We have some set-aside funds that we use for our homeless population. About $8,000 of our money goes to mentors for our beginning teachers and our new NEAT teachers. We set aside about $2,000 of that money for our beginning teachers for professional development. And then we do tuition reimbursement for new coaches as well. Finally, we have just about $40 for supplies and materials, so when we come begging, you know why. And then finally, we pay our college tuition through those Title IV funds for our high schoolers. So if you have any questions about federal fund use, I'm your person. So if you ever have any questions or concerns, please bring them to me. And now I'm going to let you get to what you're really here for today. And so Karen and Lindsay can take it away.
Good evening. Tonight we're going to look at a couple of systems, a system that you're very familiar with, you grew up with, went to school with, and then our new standards-based mastery system here that we use at NEAT. We are in our 3rd year of standards-based mastery. Lindsay actually started it out when she was still in the classroom, and we're excited about some advancements that we've made this year. We're going to share them with you. At any time, please write down questions. If you have your packet on the back, there's a couple of blank sheets for purpose, just in case something strikes you and you want to ask questions, or you mind to ask the parent panel that'll be here later with us. We promise we're not going to give you a multiple choice test, so you don't have to worry. You can take all the notes. We will post this online later, but we do know that you have a lot of questions. It is a very different system, very different type of schooling, and so we're going to rock and roll.
So on the screen, you see an 87. So I want you to think about that this is the score that your student got. And I want you to think, what do you know about their math skills when you're given an 87 as their grade? So think, right? Somebody just said, that's good. Some people's houses, that's great. I remember in my house, why isn't it an A? So think about that for a minute and have a conversation, maybe about 25, 30 seconds. Have a conversation with people at your table, your families, and what does that 87 tell you about their math ability? All right, so let's share out a little bit. You're gonna share last, because yours is great. So tell us, what are some things that 87 tells you about your child's math score or math ability? What do you think?
That they're doing well, but they need more to master it.
Okay, they're doing well, but they need more to master it. That you mostly understand, okay? But need a little bit more. Anybody else? All right, my friend over here, I'm gonna give you the microphone. What does it tell you?
Nothing.
Nothing. Does it? Good job. Standard-based mastery right there. Does it tell you how good they are at equations? Does it tell you that they can add and subtract fractions?
Does it tell you if they turn their work in on time?
Maybe. Maybe. We don't know. So tonight, we're hoping that helps you see why we've gone to standard-based mastery here at NEAT, and to lead you towards that process so that you understand why it means nothing when you get an 87, and how here at NEAT, the coaches have broken those standards down to show you exactly where your students' strengths and maybe their weaknesses might be in all of their classes.
This is our experiment. We hope the video works. Alex, is enough.
No pressure.
No pressure. No pressure.
Suppose that today you went back to school and took the normal courses of study, math, reading, science, and social studies. But in addition to those courses, there was also a class called Walk. At the end of the grading period, you earned letter grades for your performance in all those courses, and in the class called Walk, which is a course that teaches and assesses walking, you earned a B. How do you feel about this? Some of you are probably thrilled because before this, the highest grade you ever received in any class was a C. Still, others might think something along the lines of, I haven't tripped or fallen in like 4 years. Shouldn't I have an A? What if you earned a B for walking and every other person you know earned Ds? Do you feel better about your score now? Does this make you think that you're even more skilled at walking? What if they all earned A's? Do you feel worse? At this point in the example, you might start thinking to yourself, what does it even mean to earn a B in walking anyway? And if you're asking yourself that question, you're at a point where you can understand why our school district is moving away from a traditional grading system and toward a standards-based system. To illustrate both the reasoning for this switch as well as potential benefits and outcomes, I'd like to continue with the example of walking class, except instead of imagining you're attending, let's put age-appropriate students into this example. We'll take a few toddlers and enroll them in the School of Walk. Here we have 3 toddlers, Henry, Liv, and Adam. Each toddler is about 9 months old and has parents who are proud to enroll them in the School of Walk, which specializes in teaching toddlers to walk over the course of the next 6 months. Henry is enrolled in Mr. Tuffman's class, Liv is in Miss Masters' class, and Adam is in Mrs. Moorepoint's. At the end of the grading period, they're provided with a report card. Henry, who can now not only walk, but can run and jump, earned an F for the course. Liv, who can stand while holding on to something and take a few uneasy steps, earned a C. And Adam, who can only scoot like a seal and roll over, earned an A. On the surface, these grades may seem unfair. However, each of these grades can be justified using the same grading system nearly all of us experienced in school ourselves. During the course of study, each student was graded on 1 assignment each month, and those were averaged into a final grade for the course. Each of Henry's assignments were based on the skill of actually walking. Henry, who did not demonstrate a walking ability for quite some time, earned a 0 on the first 3 walking assignments. Maybe he couldn't walk, or maybe he just refused to. However, on the 4th, 5th, and final assignment, Henry earned 100%, as he not only walked, but ran across the room and jumped over some toys in the way. His teacher, Mr. Tuffman, using the same system that's been used for many years, averaged all the assignment grades together, and the math showed that Henry earned an F at 50%. Henry's parents are concerned about his grade because their son can walk, run, and jump, but has been marked as a failure. Liv was lucky to have Miss Masters, a more experienced teacher who knew that toddlers progress in skill related to standing, balancing, and so forth before being able to fully walk. In her class, assignments were not all based on walking, but on the skills leading up to walking, with the final assignments addressing specifically the skill of walking. Like in Mr. Tuffman's class, there was an assignment each month, but instead the difficulty of the assignments increased over time. Liv earned 100% for standing, 100% for balance, and so forth, but earned a 50% on the last 3 assignments. The average of all those grades turned out to be a C. But what does a C mean? Finally, Adam still scoots on his belly, but earned an A with Mrs. Morepoint's. Mrs. Morepoint's grades the same as Miss Masters, except for one difference. Mrs. Morepoint's provides extra credit in the form of extra movement. She believes this is a good idea because even if the toddler is unable to walk, moving around shows that they're trying. Additionally, students don't lose self-esteem by having a low grade. Adam earned low grades on every assignment since the first, but was able to complete extra credit assignments, and with the extra credit added, his grade results in an A. Adam's parents are thrilled that their child earned an A and leave the school happy, unaware their child is developmentally far behind. Within a traditional grading system, the mathematical calculation of each of these grades is generally accepted, which is precisely why a traditional grading system can be severely flawed, and why educational systems around the world are making the shift to standards-based.
Okay. So in traditional schools with these types of grading systems, we see all 3 of these. Mr. Tuffman, who you failed even though you can walk and run and jump, we would say in standards-based, for us, that would be exceeding, because he can run and jump. That probably would be on the exceeding scale. So all throughout the night, we're going to go back to this example of the walking and how standards-based really tackles the inequity in a traditional grading system is about inequity in each of these systems to make sure that, like you said over here, that 87 tells me nothing, the A, B, and C, and F are really not telling these parents a true picture of what their child has mastered. And if they can't walk, run, and jump, like they were enrolled in school to do, just like our kids are enrolled in school to learn those mindset, skill sets, and tool sets. Yeah, you got to pause it because it likes to go again. So how does the system provide feedback to students and parents? From what you just watched, talk about it at your table in about 30 seconds. Do you think these parents got quality feedback about where their child was in the school of walk? Hey, does anybody want to share out? Do you have any chats on the online folks? What kind of quality, after looking at the 3 different examples, do you feel like these people had in accomplishing their school of walk? None? Had none in the back? 0, none? I would have been devastated if my kid could walk or run and be like, yeah, you failed. You gotta know. Okay. I think we're trying to get something in the chat. No, you're fine. You advance the next slide. I think I know what slide. Okay, so tonight we're going to look at a comparison. The old school system that we all grew up in and our new approach to teaching and coaching and learning here the neat way with traditional. So if you can just click, these slides are animated. This is usually where Coach Worrell gets me because he's like, don't put transitions in slides. So teacher expectations are different. You just saw 3 different teachers or 3 different varied expectations for their students. Values, unwritten rules, and scales all play in part of this. The next one. It's a focus on points, not skills. A lot of times we hear kids that are transitioning from traditional schools to our school is, how many points do I have to get? What do I have to do to get the extra points? Can I just turn something in and get half credit? And that is not a value system that really focuses on skills. Feedback is usually afterwards and not during. Grades are rewards or punishments. I lived in a house where it was not pretty if you brought home something that did not meet expectations. So in a traditional grading system, rewards and punishments play a big part in, and nobody has to confess if you pay your kids for your part, it's okay. But there are rewards and punishments under a traditional system. The grade calculations are different. The scales are nonsense. If you listen to Rick Romelli, who does a lot of research on this, they're arbitrary. A 100-point system doesn't equate to an A, B, C, D, to a 4.0 system, or to a weight system. All of those scales are arbitrary. And that's another reason why the scales are inequitable for our kids as they learn. And then teachers hold a lot of power in the grading. You remember that paper you get back and it had a 45, and you don't understand how you got 45. It was like a mystery. And the kids can't be successful if they don't know ahead of time, what's my target? What am I aiming for? What are you looking for? And so it's really important to make sure we understand a traditional system does not promote that type of learning.
So tonight, you're going to actually assess yourself on a rubric. So the rubric that's up here is what we hope that you learn about standards-based mastery when you leave here tonight. So right now, we're probably all in progressing. Everybody's learning something. We've just talked about traditional grading. We've described standard-based mastery to you. By the end, we want you to be here in the mastery and in the meeting level. If you're at exceeding, great. But we want you at meeting because that's where we want your student to be as well. So by the end of tonight, we're hoping that we can check all those boxes in the meeting column. So standards-based mastery has 3 defined things. 1, we have clear learning targets. All the coaches at NEAT have taken the standard course of study from North Carolina and have broken those standards down to meet the needs of the students that are in their classroom. So we have clear targets that we want our kids to meet. There are multiple ways here at NEAT to demonstrate it. It is not a multiple choice test. It's a PBL, it's projects, it's teamwork, it's videos, it's writing things out. It's really up to the student how they display that work and that coach. And then we have actionable feedback. We want to make sure our kids can talk to us and tell us and you that I have learned this, I know that I can do this, and I know I still need help with certain things. So standard-based mastery helps us with these 3 things.
I tell myself she's going to keep herself. I'll be here too. That's okay.
If you have a growth mindset, like say you get a 2 of progressing on a project, and you know you can do much better, and you have the growth mindset, I can do better than this, then you put a lot more effort than the first time.
One child, the younger one, has more difficulty with organizing his life and prioritizing assignments. And I've seen this growth in him because NEAT sets high expectations, but for the younger students, they provide some scaffolding. They coach you how to acquire these mindsets. It's almost scary how mature both of my children have become just by walking these halls.
We can also tell you, does your child have grit, which, research studies show that grit's a better indicator than IQ at being successful, is not giving up. So we don't really teach that or measure that with a 93.
We're gonna slowly just start practicing. Imagine what's gonna happen when we add that to that. Get on there, do it, hand it over.
You're working on World War II planes, so we were assigned to build plane models. And the plane model that me and my group chose was the DC-1. It was a long process, but we finally are coming up to our due date, which is Monday. This day was kind of struggling for me because I'm not really a builder, I would say. I like to more like paint and draw. I really like to build with cardboard. It was really messy. But when building it, I really had to figure out, okay, how do I make this funnel? How do I make the body, the wing? How do I make the tail of the plane? There were a lot of things that went through my mind when I wanted to build the plane. But in the very end, it did turn out well. And he is going to pick a couple of our groups to have the plane thing up in the office. That'd be pretty cool.
And I was really interested in sound design at the time, so I built a speaker. And because of need, they aren't the ones to shut you down when you have a personal interest. They will be like, well, how can you relate this to any of your classes? So I was able to relate something that I wouldn't have learned in school, but I'm so passionate about it. I was able to relate it to mathematics and do work in my math class for this project, and my teachers could help me out. And we were talking a lot about volume and how that could affect a speaker. And so that really pushed me to do that project. And so that's really cool, is when you come to me and you have a passion, you can always incorporate it.
In 7th grade, we started our Future Cities PBL. It's a whole grade level PBL, and we work with it in all our classes.
We're working on our scale drawing for our future city project coming up.
Okay, so it's basically what is gonna happen in like the future. So it's like reduce, reuse, recycle. We're going to try to build a city that is really clean, has no pollution and stuff in it.
So in math, this is why we're doing this skill in matching it with the measurements. In reading, we're writing our essays, the paragraphs.
Thanks, Diane. Because we can do anything English-wise, pull in anything English-wise, with anything history-wise. You're reading, you're learning, you're comprehending, you're writing, everything that you still need to do for English, you can do with a historic background to it as well.
And then they get a really good look at their tool sets. Can they use the real world of work tools and apply it to what they've learned?
This school runs based off the word teamwork. The biggest word in this school is probably teamwork.
And I think employers are more and more interested in employing people who are comfortable working in teams.
They learn each other's strengths, so one might have brilliant ideas, but necessarily can't get it out onto the paper, and then there's another one who can type like a machine. So as they're speaking, the other one's typing it in, and their story just materializes. It's pretty fabulous. So they learn their strengths and their weaknesses, and they know how to work with the other students.
One of the things that is really big on too is, students not only learning, but students being able to share their learning with others. So one of the things that took place about 5 weeks ago was a exhibition of their learning from their internships. So we had about 15 students that had developed either videos or some kind of a presentation and invited people in to see their presentations.
Public speaking, without a doubt. It's one of the more important things to learn. And especially when you're on you will learn it. And as much as you might despise it when you're doing it, you're going to love it later on. The ability to public speak is so important when it comes to interviews, jobs, going to a college and getting interviewed by the staff.
So at the onset of the pandemic, the state challenged us at the end of that year when we went out in March to tell our parents and our students their strengths and areas of growth at the end of that year. And nothing kind of hits you in the face of looking at that 87 to say, well, what is this kid's strengths? And where are their areas of growth? Is it turning work in on time? Is it that they actually understand fractions and linear equations and they need to work on exponents? That 87 really tells you nothing because it's not been unpacked. There's not a clear habits of work, habits of the mind, skill sets, tool sets that have been unpacked. And that's really what standards-based grading is about, unpacking that number and giving you a real clear picture of how your child is in mindset. And we get a lot of questions, how do you come up with the mindsets? If you're at home, we'll share this with you. And you click on mindset. There's an article from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and they're going over what mindsets they need in the workforce in the future. And Dr. Harris shared it with our instructional team, and in that article talks about meaningful work. They need workers who take pride in the job that they do and they understand why their job's important. It talks about data literacy. Our kids are working on their data literacy here. It talks about being empathetic and having a love for the environment and being inclusive. All those habits of the mind that we have here, that we have rubrics for, so we can give you feedback on your child to say, your child's got a great mindset, they're resilient, they keep trying. We had coaches this summer go on externships to the Coast Guard base, and Coach Dell was there, and she came back, and she said, I didn't understand how it plays a role till she got out there. And when she came back, 8th grade at the beginning of the year has really looked at their mindsets, and those kids can tell you what each of these are and how it works into their academics. Skill sets are our standard course of study that the state sets out. We also rely on our business partners. For example, biotechnology was helped to be written by Centera Hospital for us, and what they need kids going into biotechnology to be able to know and do. And then finally, our tool sets are employability skills. What do they need to be able to use? Calipers. Do they need to be able to use measurements, instruments, instrumentation, be able to work on teams, run a project management plan? And you can click on the tool sets. We have a list of our Business Alliance members that have actually come in here and looked at the rubric and said, hey, you need to adjust this. This is what we're seeing in our workforce, and this is what we need your kids to be able to do. So we really feel like the way the standards-based mastery here at NEED is set up, that you can have a really clear picture of what your child knows and how successful they're going to be, and they should be able to tell you because they work with these rubrics every day. They talk with their coaches back and forth every day. They communicate it. They provide peer feedback. They're well versed in what they're knowing in these 3 areas. So a comparison. So on our rubric, we're going to get out of here comparing traditional and standards-based. So specific learning targets are easy to identify, and traditional, they're really not. To receive credit, students must meet or better the rubric, and they know ahead of time, hey, this is what I'm going to have to be able to do, and this is where I am, and this is what I need to work on. It's a focus on points, not skills, with a traditional system, which we very much are away from with this mastery-based learning. Feedback is a tool. It is not one and done. I think sometimes that's the hardest when we talk to the coaches. The kids just want to turn it in and get it over with. But they realize very quickly here at NEED that they're going to go back to that and see where they are and then improve on that. So they get that second and third opportunity to show mastery. It's not about rewards and punishments, it's your learning journey. Where did you start, where are you headed, and how far have you come? That the mindsets and tool sets are reported separately. This really gives you a clear picture. If your child knows their skill sets but has a hard time getting work in on time or using the resources, we can target that and provide support. The grade calculations are not a mystery. You're going to be able to see that 4, 3, 2, and 0 and know exactly where your kids are. And then students are playing an active role. If we have nothing else, we want to make sure that the kids know and can communicate and understand their progress and that they see value and meaning in their work. It's not a mystery. It's not going to be a mystery of how that grade ended up. The kids are going to know ahead of time how to be successful and to tell you where they are. So some logistics. So how do we make all this magic happen and get out the progress report that you just had? We have a scale. Our parent advisory council said, oh, you're on a 4-point scale. It's not a 4.0 scale like college. Really, we could have picked any numbers. We could have gone with a 10, a 7, a 5, and a 0, and it would have not made any difference. We kept the points low, so the average score would be low. They had no translation to a 4.0 scale. You want to do yours? This is her rubric.
So every assignment or task that your student has, there should be a rubric attached to it. And so what you see on the screen are 2 activities that my kids did that dealt with the distributed property. So one of them was a choice board assignment, and then the other one after they practiced was an exit ticket. So if they could do the things that were in the 3, then that's why it's clicked for them. But the standard was broken down. If they could only do part of it, then they got the 2, which is progressing, which is okay, and what we expect when they're starting to learn something that's new. Progressing is okay. Exceeding is going to the next grade level. So I taught 8th grade math. And so what happened is my exceeding was the math 1 standard, which will be the next thing they were going to go into. So if they could do the math 1 standard and I pushed them to that level in small groups, then they got the 4. So it is a constant checking of their standard and their skill level.
And to think about back to walking and running and jumping, if they could roll over and scoot, they're here. If they could walk unassisted, they're here. And then if they're running and jumping and cartwheeling and skipping, they're at the exceeding level. And it's okay if they stay at the progressing level for a while. If you have multiple kids, never any kid does the same thing in the same order. And so we don't expect our kids here, like that example is with walking and crawling, to do it the same. They might not, my child never crawled. She scooted because we toted her everywhere, and then she just walked. Like she skipped the whole part. And it's okay. So as long as the kids are trying, they have that growth mindset, they're sticking to it, and we're making progress, we're going to provide those scaffolding to get them to that meeting. And the meeting is where they want to be. So when you get that first report card, like you saw in your progress report, there was no A, B, C, D, E, F, G up there. There's no letter grade. This year we have transitioned to the mastery-based scale, and you will see an E, an M, a P, and a not demonstrated, depending on where your child is for their subject area. M is for meeting. And once again, we get a lot of emails and text messages and things. I have to pay my child. What's the A? There is no A. If you're paying out money, M for money, M for meeting, that's where the money spot is. Okay. How do we get those metrics? We take that number, and once again, the numbers are arbitrary. We could have picked any number. And it is set on a decaying average, and it comes out to these ranges. And these ranges will give you, at each marking period, whether they're exceeding, meeting, progressing, or not demonstrated. If they are progressing or not demonstrated, they might need some support, and your coaches will reach out and let you know, hey, your child might be struggling a little bit. If it's a not demonstrated, we're going to contact you, maybe set up a PEP, a personalized education plan, to provide some extra scaffolding and supports. So not demonstrated would alert you to, is my child at risk of not going to the next grade level? So some notables in that. So if you see a not demonstrated in progress report, don't start freaking out and have a panic attack. It's too early. Remember back to the walking, crawling, and running. It's too early in the season to be like sprinting across the room. Right now, we're still trying to roll over and crawl a little bit. So the 9 weeks are not averaged together. It is truly a learning journey. If your kid struggles or scoots for a really long time and then all of a sudden just gets up and runs, they're not averaged together. It is the final scale score that they end up with, which will be their final on their report card. It is not an average. If you will have multiple opportunities to demonstrate mastery, it is not a one and a done.
I explained it to a parent this way today, that how you have a 9 weeks grade, and that's traditional grading, you had an 87. You don't start back at 0 in the second 9 weeks or start back at a 100. the score you had continues, and we continue to build on that so that we see them moving up in each of those skills. So it does not reset each 9 weeks.
We do run a decaying average, which in short means it decreases a 0 hit. So in the past, on a traditional scale, you took a 0, and that teacher told you what it takes, like 10 or 15 100s to make that 0 up, and you're basically dead in the water. Here, the 0 is on a decaying average, so the last attempt at that standard is what counts the most, because it truly is your journey and where you've gotten to. And so on your progress report, we'll show you tonight how to see what's the last attempt on that standard and what's weighing the most. And then all the other attempts are averaged together in a smaller portion, which decreases the 0 effect. We've also had our kids set goals. They've been working on their 3D goal setting, and they've taken a look at not demonstrated and turning work in, and they've set some goals for themselves about even if it's not perfect or not finished, turn it in. It is not a traditional system. The coaches really want to see what they know. And so we're working on the not demonstrated and goal setting to make sure that they have shown us what they truly are capable of and knowing. And then once again, there is no equivalent to a letter grade. A 4 is not a 4.0, it's not an A, it's not anything. It's just the number that we set out to have when we started this. In your packet, you have some frequently asked questions in more detail to explain, but we kind of put them up here because these usually are the heavy hitters for us. Will your student get recognized for mindset, skill sets, and tool set achievement? Yes, we have written a new board policy that is passed. They will get recognized in mindset, skill sets, and tool sets, and that is included in your packet. How will you know if your child's in jeopardy of not passing their course? You will have a personalized education plan. The coaches will communicate to you and reach out and tell you that your child is struggling and what supports we're going to put in place here at school and what you can do to help us at home, get them to start progressing through their course material in each of the mindset, skill sets, and tool sets area. Lindsay just went over what happens if my kid bombs in 9 weeks. It's not about the 9 weeks and the average. It's back to the journey. And then if you have an 8th grader that is taking high school courses, they will have the letters, the E, the M, the P. But at the end of the year, because they're taking high school courses and it does go on their transcript, it has no GPA implications, we have to give them a number grade. North Carolina State statute says you will have a number grade on your transcript. And so in compliance with that, if they're taking those high school courses in 8th grade, we'll convert that letter to a number. So we obey North Carolina law on that. And once again, it has no implication on their GPA, and it'll show up on their transcript that they got those credits for high school in 8th grade. No high school here tonight. I guess just to look ahead, our high school is running 2 grade books. And we are working with Mastery Transcript to design a transcript that will show the mindset, skill sets, and tool sets. A lot of colleges and universities who are part of a consortium do take the alternative transcript. That's several years down the road for us, but we're getting to work on that because we have kids that have done standards-based mastery in high school now, and so we're gently moving it along up the high school level. So looking ahead, progress reports are set to 3D goals for improvement. If you look on the back of your first page is our 3D model. This is new for us this year. We do continuous improvement all the time, but we have a lot of different languages around it. We're really trying to get this year to use the same design, deliver, and discover language with our kids, and they've set goals based around this continuous improvement. And they just finished their week 1 reflection today in their classes. We're starting to pilot student-led conferences. It really is about the kids understanding and knowing and being able to communicate what they know and can do. And so we'll start that at the end of the first 9 weeks. We have several coaches in the room who will be piloting that for us. We're going to continue to showcase our system and the positive effects it has on student achievement. If you're into research, we have a list of research studies that show you why standards-based is more equitable and a better system for exhibiting the kids' learning. And we'll be happy to pass that along for some light reading. And then we're going to continue to refine our rubrics and learning activities. It's really important for all of our stakeholders to understand that it's never done. It's not we do a rubric and we're good with it, and then it's old and crusty for the next 30 years and we haven't changed it. The real world of work changes, the standard course of study changes, habits of the mind change. Data literacy, we haven't seen a lot of that till recently, data visualization, data literacy. As things come for our kids to be successful, we're going to change and innovate. And so just be mindful that when you talk to our coaches, the coaches said, oh, we're getting ready to redo these rubrics. They're going to go through that 3D process just like the kids do. We're going to take them apart, March, April, break them down, make sure they're meeting the needs of the kids in our business alliance and what we need to make them successful. And then we're going to gear back up for the next year. So our parent panel, we have our parents come up. No takers on this one. Okay. Anybody have any questions for our parents? Let's let our parents introduce themselves and say where their children are in their learning here with us.
All right, hey, I'm Sarah Brown. I have a child in 9th grade and a child in 7th grade, and this is our 3rd year at NEAT.
My name is Terry Smith. I have 2 11th graders and an 8th grader, and this is our 5th year, I think.
And I'm Ellen Silva. I have a 9th grader and a 6th grader, and this is our 4th year at NEAT.
Fine question for parents. We promise we'll plug our ears if you really want to lay it out there. Did your children learn? Did they survive the transition?
What was the hardest adjustment?
Actually, I think it's much harder for we as parents to adjust to this new system. Children just pick up what becomes their new normal. And so the standards-based learning has been very motivating for my children because they look at the progress reports and they see where they're progressing and where they have met the standard. And it kind of like lights a fire to do better. Both of them in their own way really try to push themselves to do better each time, and they know what area they need to do better in.
I will say, my children all came from a traditional school setting in our local county, and it's been really good for certain children that I have because they would be so focused on the number grade that it was very stressful for them. And so it kind of has really reduced their anxiety because, even if they got like a 91, they would say, but I didn't get a 99 or, so it's been very good, and I think in helping them to enjoy school a little bit more.
I agree with everything they said. I agree with Ellen that the biggest challenge is really, for me, was just learning the terminology and making sure to reinforce that with my children, just making sure to say, oh, you were progressing on dividing fractions, but now you've met that skill. Good for you. And so it gives us as parents tools to actually speak to our children about what they are actually doing in school instead of how was math? You got a B, why'd you not get an A? So we have the terminology to actually talk about specifics with them, which is good. And I also just want to say, if you get that progress report and everybody's progressing and your kid used to make straight A's at a regular traditional school, don't panic. It will be okay. They will get it. They will learn. It takes time for them to adjust, and then you'll start to see them meet those expectations and possibly even exceed in some of the expectations, and they can truly feel proud of themselves because they see it on paper. They see their growth from the beginning to the end of the school year.
Any questions before they run off? Reassurances? Any questions? Okay. So progress report breakdown. If your kids are with you, please pull up your progress reports out of your folder. If you've not shown your parents now, they know. We sent home progress reports last Friday. It was a fast 3 weeks. We were all like, holy cow, we've been in school 3 weeks. And so at the top, you can pick one. It doesn't matter. If you're in the middle school, you should have 5 progress reports. If you're at the high school, it depends on how many classes you're taking in combination with Literacy State and COA and NEET. So I can't give you a definite number at the high school. Our coaches are going to walk around and kind of point things out. So as we go over it, if you have any questions, throw a hand up. They're going to help you. We can help you up here. So at the top of the progress report is going to have your child's name, class, and coach. And then the report date. You'll get these every 3 weeks. We will make sure that the folders are dated. Your kids actually dated their own folders and drug their progress reports into their folders. And so we will date them every 3 weeks so you know the latest progress reports batch set. At the very top, you have bars. This is how many standards the class has covered. This really has nothing to do with your kid directly. It's just going to tell you how many standards that the coach has covered up to date. So for example, 33 standards here, 2 assess and mindsets, 10, and then it's going to show you how many have not been assessed. Okay. The next set of bar graphs is all about your child. So you have skill sets, mindsets, and tool sets, and they're color coded. Orange being the not demonstrated in, progressing is that light orange, meeting, the Carolina blue, and then the blue we shall not name will be exceeding. Okay, at the very end, you're going to have your average and what letter that comes out to be overall. On each bar graph, it's going to show you the standards and what percentages at each scale. So you may have any questions. This is your first page of your progress report. Any questions about the bars? We call this the snapshot page. It's kind of the general overview. When we piloted this with our pack, some parents said, hey, I just want the first page. I don't need anything else. And then some parents said, but I like all the other pages. I want all the other pages so I can see every standard. So your progress report as the year goes along will get much longer. And how you choose to use it at your house just depends on how in depth of knowledge. I know some of our parents go on each standard and look, and they make goals at home. And we know some parents are just going to look at the snapshots, and that is up to you. Your next page is all the assessments that have been since the last 3 weeks. So this is like the reset page. So in 3 more weeks, you're not going to have 6 weeks worth of assessments. You're only going to have the last 3. At the top, you're going to have the names or the assessment titles, and that's going to match in Canvas. We pulled this right out of Canvas. And so you'll be able to go to Canvas and you say, I wonder why you got not demonstrated on this activity. You'll be able to go to Canvas and see that. On the left-hand side are all the standards. And underneath it, it's going to tell you if that's a mindset, skill set, or tool set. And then each box is color-coded again for the scale rating that they had, as Lindsay showed you on those rubrics. So this is a 2, they were scored at a progressing. If you see this Pythagorean theorem transformations, this one assignment had 3 standards attached to it. So if you look down, some assignments are going to assess multiple standards. If it's a really big standard, it might only assess 1. It just depends on how the coach has set up that assessment to look at. You do not have these pages quite yet. The next 2 pages are your top 5 standards. mindsets and skill sets, and then you'll have your lowest, so you can see where the celebrations are with your kids and how they've progressed, and then you can look and see where we kind of need to target and work on. If they're still progressing, like Lindsay said, it's okay. The coaches here are working with them. We run dashboards. They meet with the kids. And so you'll be getting these pages. It's so early in the school year. We haven't had enough standards yet to do a top 5 and a bottom 5. But we'll get there, and you'll see these pages as the school year progresses.
And then the last page that you will see that you do not, you don't have this right now, do they?
They might have a lollipop.
Is all the standards down the side that have been assessed and where they're at. They're progressing, they're meeting what their average score is. So you can see based on the line bar graph where they fall for each standard, and the scale is at the bottom. So you're able to see the ones they're still progressing in, where they're meeting, and where they're exceeding.
So by the end of the year, this will be on several pages. Have any questions? I need to come by and let's help you. Yes, ma'am.
I just have one question.
Okay.
Last season, we were getting the link, the email. That worked for me good. I'm not computer savvy and going into Google, and I just do searches in Google. Do we have an option to how we receive the?
I would say reach out to your coach and let them know. We transitioned to the folders because the kids are actively using the progress reports to set goals.
Yeah, but what about the parents?
And look, the parents and grandparents, we will definitely work with you to make sure that you're comfortable using it and have access to it. But we transitioned for student use, and to be able, the next iteration of our 3D model, they'll be putting their goals with their progress reports, and they're gonna say, hey, I looked at my progress reports and I'm gonna work on this.
Yeah.
And these are my goals,
so
and these are my
small.
action steps.
The print is so small in the Chromebook.
Oh.
So.
You can do Alt plus and it'll.
Oh. Does that not get any bigger than that?
Yeah.
You see the?
Oh.
Control plus and blow it up.
And then control minus will shrink it.
Thank you. That helps. I still rather have the link. Okay, thank you.
Any else? Questions?
So now think about yourself and think about all the information that we gave you tonight, and look at your rubric as a parent on the screen and decide, where have you moved? You were in progressing when we started. Where have you moved? Have you moved to meeting? You should, yes. And then some of you who have been doing this for a couple of years now might be in the exceeding, because you're ready to advocate for those changes in the classroom. So think about that as you're filling out the feedback form for tonight. If you still have questions, we're here to answer your questions if you need us individually. But Carolyn, we'll wrap it up.
So our coaches are gonna come around and answer any questions that you have about the progress reports. As you're doing that, if you could fill out the feedback form, this is an opportunity for us to be sure that we are meeting your needs as parents, and making sure that we are always addressing and giving you the information that you need. We want to thank you for coming out and thank those online. And if you have any further questions, please reach out to your coaches and raise your hand in person, and we'll get around to you.
Sometime before they last week, they shared it, they should have shared it.